Hey guys, welcome back. This is Frank, and welcome to the third episode of Snake Game Tutorial with Frank. In the last episode, we already focused on the canvas element, so I'll just cross it out here. And in this episode, we will be focusing on the snake element itself. So, a thing to notice here is that how we represent different parts of the snake. So let's take a look at the graph I made here. So imagine this is a 300 pixel times 300 pixels grid of our canvas. So we know that this point here is 0, 0. And this point here is 300, 300. Alright, so how do we represent each of the snake's part? So imagine this is a snake, and we would like to know which part, because each one of these parts has a distinct coordinate value. So for example, for this part, the value would be, let me change it to another color. Let's say magenta. So we know that here, this will be the x value of the first part of the snake. And this would be the y coordinate of the first rectangle. And similarly, let me change the pointer, the color to green. Similarly, the x coordinate of the second one is this x1, and the y coordinate of the second one is y1. So you can tell that y0 equals to y1, and x0 and x1 just differ slightly. So that's basically the idea of how we will draw the snake. And yep, let's just dive right into the coding part. Alright, so here's the code we had from last week. I didn't change much, I just added some comments. Now here's the thing about commenting. It is a really good habit in programming if you comment your work, because it allows other people and yourself to understand your code better. Imagine you're looking at your code from 10 or 20 years ago. You might not know what you were thinking about without the help of the comments. So it is a really important way of expressing what you are trying to express with the code. So anyway, last week we defined some constants, and we also learned to add background and border to canvas. Today we'll be using some variables, so I already put the variable section over here. And the thing about variable is that there are currently two ways of declaring a variable, using the keyword let or var. The difference between them is that let is a local variable, while var is a global variable. So here's an example of using let and var. So here's a small HTML file I wrote in order to distinguish between let and var. Let's take a look. So I have 3 paragraphs: let 1 out, let 2 out, and var out, each with the value of default value. So if it didn't output anything, it will just say default value. So here's the JavaScript part. So I have a const called let 1 out, which gets the let 1 out element, and then let 2 out is a let 2 out paragraph element, and the var out is var out element. And then I declared a var variable, and I called it var x, so it is a string. And then I said if 100 is bigger than 101, then let x equals to let 1x, and then let 1 out inner HTML, which means the content of let 1 out equals to x. This means that if 100 is bigger than 101, then I declare a let variable x with the value of let 1x, and then change the inner HTML of let 1 out to x, which is let 1x basically. And then else, if 100 is smaller than 101, then declare another local variable let this x equals to let 2x, and I changed the inner HTML of let2 out to x, and then I changed the inner HTML of var out to x. Here's how we expect it will happen. So basically, because 100 is smaller than 101, so this part will all be ignored. It will just jump to else, and then the inner HTML of the second paragraph will be changed to x, this local variable x, which is let2 x, and then this part, this x, this var out, this variable will be var x. That means the output of var out should be var x. So let's run this and see what happens. Oh, this index. We're gonna change it to let and var.html. So the let1x is not being output because 100 is apparently smaller than 101, and so let2x is output, and then var x is output. So this x is the var x part over here all the way, and this x is this let variable over here, and this x is this let variable over here. So this is a small example of how to distinguish between let and var. Alright, so what we're gonna do here, another thing is that I don't think the new standard still accept var. I think it's deprecated, but yeah, we'll use let all the way in this tutorial to follow the standard. So let's define this variable. As we said over here, wait, where's the PowerPoint? As we said over here, we have to store a series of values, a series of coordinate values of each of the rectangles. So in order to do this, in order to store a series of values, we will need an array. An array is what we use to store more than one value. And in this case, let's first define this. Let snake equals to empty array. So these, I don't know how to call it, square brackets, these are used to define arrays. And how we write the element of the array is usually like something comma, like something comma something 2 comma something 3 comma, and then the other curly bracket, and then a semicolon. But here we need to store both x and y coordinate of each of the snake part. So that means what we're going to need is a 3-dimensional array. It's okay if you don't understand, but the thing is, what we're going to do is for each part, so this will be the first part, the x-axis will be 150, let's say, and the y-axis will be 150. This is the first part. So going back to the graph, we're saying that x is 150, so x0 over here, this one is 150, and then its y is 150 as well, so this y is 150. Even though it's not like that on my version, it should be the x0 and y0 should be equal for the output. And then the second part would be x is 140, so you can see that we're moving forward. This is like the tail. This is like the tail over here, and then we're moving back closer to 0, or minus 10 each time. So basically, here's the coordinate of the tail, and then we minus 10. We minus 10 for the let's say if this is the tail, and then we minus 10 for the coordinate of this part. The y-axis should always stay the same because the snake is on the straight line. And then we have x equals to 130, and y is still 150. That would be the third part. And then and then x is 120, y 150. And finally, x 110, y 150. All right. So this whole thing would be how our snake should look like. This snake variable stores the coordinates of the snake. Actually, let me change that to snake coordinate. Snake coord. So we know that it stores the coordinate of the. Let's just use core for easier purposes. This stores the coordinates of the snake. So what we're gonna need over here is a function to actually draw the snake onto the canvas. So let's say draw snake function, drawing snake onto canvas. This function, and let's define a new function. Function keyword is used to define function, and draw snake. Yeah, draw snake. And oops, I forgot the parentheses over here. And the thing is, this draw snake. Okay, actually, let me rename this. Let me rename this to draw snake part. So what this means is that it will draw the snake part onto the canvas one by one. So what we need is another function called draw snake that calls this draw snake part when we get each of the coordinates of the snake, from the snake cord variable. So the draw snake part needs an input, which means draw snake part needs an input, which I'll say part for now, and then what we'll do is the canvas context again. We'll be using that to draw our snake, and the fill style. See, that's what we did over here for background border. So the fill style of the snake would be, let's choose a color. Let's say blue, and still the context. We're going to set the stroke style to dark blue, and then we're gonna fill this rectangle using the fill rect. Oops, no ctx. Sorry. I mean canvas context should be like that. And we need an x coordinate. That will be, we need to get the x coordinate from the snake cord variable. So when it's passed as an argument, it is passed as an array. So it will be looking something like this. Like an array. Oh, I should don't need that. X 150, y 150. So we pass to like this. So what we need to do is, this is a part. So what we need to do is we need to get the x-axis of the part, which this one, as the x coordinate that we need to use the fill rect function. So as we did over here, it needs an x and y, a width and a height. So the x would just be the part dot x, and then the y would be part dot y. The width, let's say, set to 10, and the height set to 10. Similarly, we also have the stroke rect, part x, part y, 10, 10, same thing. All right. So what we do need over here is that a draw snake function that calls draw snake part for each part. So what we can do is we use snake cord for each this method. We're gonna draw snake part. What this does is that it gets each of the terms in the array, and then for each of this term, pass it as an argument to the function drawSnake part. Okay, so now we're done with the drawSnake part. Let's call the drawSnake function as soon as the game is run. And comment here, call drawSnake function. Alright, let's try to run this. See, here we have our, let me increase it, pretty decent snake. I know it looks kind of blurry, but it's because it's too small. And here we learn how to draw the snake onto the canvas. And if we want to change the position, let's say change all of them lower a bit, change all of them to 100. I mean, oh, that is actually going up. Refresh the page. Oops. Here we can see that it actually went up from its original place by 50 pixels. So yeah, here's how it works. Let me change it back to 150 so that it is in the middle. Alright, awesome. So here we got our pretty decent snake, and in the next episode we will be learning how to randomize the position of the food and draw the food onto the canvas, similar to how we drew the snake onto the canvas. Yep, that will wrap up this video, and please like, subscribe, and click the bell button in order to get first-hand information when I upload a new video. And I hope to see everyone here in the next episode of Snake Game Tutorial with Frank.